what model could you run locally that's going to do as well and generate good code like the best Anthropic cloud version?
Yeah, so you got Quen, you got DC, you've got Gemma. So that means there's already quite a few. And there's different sizes. So if you want the 7B, 8B up to a 70B or 80B billion parameter, if you want to go really light, you can go down to a 1 or 3 billion parameter model. So it depends on your hardware.
Welcome to Practical AI, everybody. My name's Jeff. I'm here with Peter Lynn. Practical AI is brought to you by Pocket AI.
Pocket AI is a visualization tool that allows you to prune your models without any loss in accuracy. Visualizing your model weights is like a brain surgeon being able to find individual neurons and removing them without harm to the brain. Similarly, Pocket AI allows you to analyze and prune the weights in your model. Using Pocket AI, we have proven we can select the right backbone model, get that model to actually work, make that model more stable, increase a model's accuracy, decrease the size of a model by up to 60%, and put smaller models into production for half the cost. Finally, you can be done with endless brute force training and new model trials. Pocket AI allows you to perform brain surgery on your existing models, making them not only smaller, but better.
Hi. Peter, today we want to talk about a couple of different things, but one of them is hallucinations. And it seems like there's some research going on that maybe the models are not performing better. They might be getting worse. Tell us a little bit about what we're
Yeah.
seeing.
The latest report from OpenAI, the latest model, there's a section where they talk about kind of the things that they're still working on that's a challenge. And one of them was they tracked the hallucination rates between the older versions and the new version. And the new version hallucinates more than the older versions.
Is this across all models or just certain models?
So they have a suite of benchmarks that measures hallucination. And when they release the version, well, before they release it, they test it, obviously. And what they found was that the newest versions hallucinate more. And in the write-up, they don't know why.
Do you have any idea as to why? Do you suspect something here?
So my guess is that because we ran out of good data and people are using synthetic data now, is that this is kind of this is one form of collapse because it's training on generated data now.
And that can't improve unless you either retrain with non-synthetic data. And at the same time, you also have to generate enough data to train on that's quality data, right?
Yeah, right. So I suspect people will get better at generating better data, but it won't be the LLM generating data. Someone's going to have to write code that. So let's say program, for example. If I wanted to generate better code, I can ask an LLM to generate code in different variations, but there's no guarantee that code is good or that that code has good taste or that's well designed or it's easy to maintain. On the other hand, if you give a compiler guy a piece of code, he's going to parse that code into what's called an abstract syntax tree. And then he can write code that'll produce 100 different variations of that code. And he has taste. So he can then say, all right, this is bad code, this is good code, and this is well maintainable code. So he's going to generate examples of code. He's going to apply his own taste. And then that code for sure is going to run. It's going to compile. He can then give it examples and he can tag the different pieces of code as good, bad, hard to maintain, easy to maintain, modularized, monolithic, all these different things. And so now a human is writing real code to generate better data versus the LLM just randomly producing data.
Sounds like a art and a science in and of itself, like a whole stream of stuff, the data creation people.
Yeah, and actually NVIDIA has a set of tools in their Nematron, their cloud, that's supposed to give you better generated data. So so they've trained an LLM to get better results and better generated data, but it's still not going to be as good as if someone spent time, an actual expert, to actually produce generated code. Like for example, let's say you wanted to produce more recipes. Well, you can ask an LLM to generate recipes, but if you ask 100 chefs to come up with better examples, they will produce better examples.
So the produced data is not just code like coding. It can be anything. It could be
Yeah, I mean,
artwork. It could be literature or anything. Okay. This sounds like a topic we'll need to hit in greater depth. So um, let's let's find that one for another day, and let's hit the next one. This is a quick one too. Google's TPUs. They launched, or they kind of hit the wire here last 4 weeks or so. Tell us why this matters.
So it matters because when Google first started the TPU many years ago, they recognized that the AI stuff that they were doing at that time was running into bottlenecks at runtime for inference. And so they started to build TPUs, tensor processing units. And one of the people that worked on that left and founded the Grok, the language processing unit, the LPU. And so they knew a long time ago, like, well, in tech time, it's a long time ago, but in human time, it's not. It's been like 5 to 10 years. They knew that the inference would be a huge issue. So Google's been working on this for many years now. So the latest version, they've split training and inference into 2 separate chips and made dedicated chips optimized for each one. And so this is a risk to Nvidia and their place as the one-stop shop.
Okay, so essentially, Google, they sort of saw that inference was going to be a big deal. Meanwhile, the folks over at Nvidia were kind of, not that they didn't think inference would be a big deal, but they basically went all in on the training, made $1 trillion, and then fixed their inference conundrum by just buying up. They bought up Grok and maybe some others. So
Yes, yeah.
Google's sort of sitting here now. They've got essentially all the pieces, right? They've got cloud, they've got runtime, they've got training. They're, like you said, they're a threat to the sort of monopoly that Grok has, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, Anthropic signed up with Google to use their TPUs, right? And Anthropic is one of the top 3. So if you lose one of the top 3, that's competition.
Got it. All right, let's move over to our main topic, and we kind of wanted to we dabble in this, I think, our last episode or maybe 2 before, but running models locally is something that I think ML engineers are doing kind of in fun mode. Hasn't maybe hit as the enterprise or the big leagues yet, but certainly we will see a time in the future where running locally, either at an enterprise level, either just for a consumer, is something that will happen more and more. And we've got a little bit of a trial run that someone did. Tell us about running locally and kind of what the research shows and what's possible.
Yeah, so in the open source world, a lot of people run it locally. So there's LM Studio, which is available on Mac and PCs. There's Olama, which is another open source project. There's Apple's MLX. So there's quite a number of different players trying to make it so you can run language models locally. And if you look on Hugging Face, there are tens of thousands of models up there, right? And there's models that people refined on a specific domain like cancer or sports or whatever. So that you can literally search on Hugging Face for a specific domain, and someone probably has refined a model for that domain. And even with the enterprise phase, a lot of people are reaching the max for their tokens. And so they're running a local LLM when they reach the maximum limit for their premium tokens. But the rest of the world doesn't see this because they're not in the space, but within the space, a lot of people are running local LLMs.
Okay, and why wouldn't an enterprise sort of get into the local LLM? Like, why would they
They
always
are.
do everything?
The companies that are on the edge that have developers using LLMs every day as part of their regular kind of development, they are using local LLMs. The people that aren't on the edge and they're only using it like every now and then, they're not, because they're not using enough. But anyone that's like using it actively are going to burn through their premium tokens within a couple days or a week.
So what's a good sort of consumer grade use case for an LLM local? And what's an enterprise example of where this should be done or could be
So
considered?
right now for enterprise, it's mostly programming. For consumers, I would say something that's kind of more privacy or security related, you probably want to run it locally. I wouldn't want to send stuff up to OpenAI. I don't trust them.
Okay, so let's look at the enterprise then. What model could you run locally that's going to do as well and generate good code like the best Anthropic cloud version?
Yeah, so you got Quen, you got DC, you've got Gemma. So that means there's already quite a few. And there's different sizes. So if you want the 7B, 8B up to a CB or 80B billion parameter. If you want to go really light, you can go down to a 1 or 3 billion parameter model. So it depends on your hardware.
But aren't you trading off massive quality of code if you're doing
At
that?
this point, not really. It's at this point, everyone's kind of benchmark maxed and hacked the benchmarks enough that at the end of the day, those little differences don't really amount to much.
Okay. And then in prep for this, we talked a little bit about how only a certain amount of the model is active at any given time. Explain a
Mm-hmm.
little bit how that works, maybe from a technical perspective, but then just for the user, what's the user's experience in terms of what's active or not?
Yeah, right. So we take a step back. What all the companies do is they train one foundation model on everything, and then they take that version and then they refine it on like finance or medical or sports or math or programming. And so now they've got like 8 different versions specialized in different domains. And so when you say like GPT-5 or GPT-4 or 3, they're actually made up of like specialized versions all as one. So originally you would load all of them at once, and so it took a lot of memory. Now you can just activate just that one that you want. So if you're doing math stuff, there's one that actually figures out like, what is the subject? And it goes, oh, okay, it's math. So I'm just going to use the math one. If it's programming, it just does the programming one. And so what's active is just the one that you're going to use, not the whole entire thing.
Okay, so instead of thinking of like an 8 billion parameter model as a tall skyscraper, we
Right.
take the 8 billion parameter model as that might actually be 1 billion parameter models, one for
Right.
math, one for science, one for writing, whatever.
Yes.
And
Yep.
so you may download the whole thing or
Mm-hmm.
download, and then you ask a question or prompt, and it's only going to activate the math one when you ask a math question, and therefore it can
Exactly.
actually run better.
Exactly.
So
Yep.
is this baked in? So when I say I have an 8 billion parameter model running locally, is it possible for my machine to run an 8 billion parameter model, or is
Oh
it
yeah.
only
Yeah.
running a fraction of it and only a 1 billion
So,
parameter model?
so you can run an 8 billion parameter model on a Mac just fine. You can run up to like a 40 or 50 billion parameter model just fine.
Really?
Yeah. So what this means is you can download a 300 billion parameter model that is horizontal with different parts. And then when you run it, it'll only activate the 8 billion that you're using right now. And the
Okay, that
other,
was kind of my question.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Good. So why, like, this should be the end around for all the tokens. Like, if token creep is going to kill all these companies, right? And the toll booth is just running and running
Mm-hmm.
and running. This seems like the hack. Just go open source and get a 300 billion parameter model and run it on a big system.
Well, not only that, you actually don't need a system that's that big. If you get like a system with 128 or 256 gigs of memory, you can run a 300 billion parameter model with only 20 billion active anytime. That's not an issue.
Yeah, I suppose
Obviously, it'll be
if you're doing static stuff like medical record or not medical records, but like asking medical questions or having it
Mhm.
summarize I mean, most of the use cases that we use in business are not like you don't need a mega model that knows everything.
No, you don't. I mean, the reason why Microsoft is charging premium tokens is to make money. That's their own
Yeah.
reason. Same with OpenAI.
And then one more
Yep.
question then, if we just extend like everyone's gone agentic, right? There's so much happening from an agentic perspective. In my brain, I'm seeing maybe an advantage here that corporations and enterprises might not think about, and that is if I use a local model for my agent, I won't have issues around, Anthropic or Google, doing an
Hmm.
upgrade and collapsing all my prompts that I just spent, days and hours setting up. I've got a
Yep.
fixed environment and a fixed model that's never going to change. Is that a safe way to look at it?
Well, not only that is you don't have to worry about it going down, right? Like I think pretty much all of them have had issues where like at times I've had friends and coworkers say, right now it's kind of down, like Anthropic is down or Microsoft is down because it's just really hard for them to keep these big machines running LLMs because when there's like 2 or 3 or 5 million people using it, you run into issues because you're
Yeah.
competing with everyone else using Microsoft's Azure or everyone's using OpenAI's infrastructure. And so it's a lot harder to maintain a system meant to handle traffic for 10 million people versus just your 4,000 users in your company.
Yeah. Good. I mean, it seems like a lot of advantages that are probably going to become more and more apparent as this becomes more and more a common practice. But as far as I'm concerned, most of the companies that I'm talking to, using an open source small model is not even something that they're considering yet, and yet they probably should be.
Oh yeah, I think in the coming months, I think this year you're going to see a lot more people actually using open source models and considering it.
I hope you're right. Well, we will see. Thanks, Peter. Good topics. Please, if you have questions or want us to cover a certain topic, let us know. And then we can be found on Spotify. So if you don't like watching these things, prefer to listen to them, find us there. In the meantime, we'll be back soon with another episode. Take care, everybody.